It's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Hockey News Big Show. I'm your host, Katie Gaus, joined, as always, by Michael Traikos and Ryan Kennedy. As we are crawling into the early stages of the season now, a couple teams with 3 games under their belt, a few teams have gotten 4. So it's never too early for us to talk about our favorite thing, which is, should the Toronto Maple Leafs be worrying about something? Because, of course, there's always something that we can be concerned about. Couple games where we weren't seeing maybe as much offensive production as we want from those top guys. In general, we just saw a great game. Austin Matthews getting some nice points. But in general, what's the feeling around Toronto and the top 6? Because this is something that with the departure of Mitch Marner, we've clearly talked a lot about. Who's going to fill those roles? Are they going to eventually need to go outside the team as it is right now to bring somebody in? So is it time to be worrying about that? Michael, just what's the overall feeling right now around the top 6 forward group with the Leafs?
So I don't think you're ever going to replace Mitch Marner. And I believe that Easton Cowan is actually doing a really good job on that top line. But this year, I think we got to throw out the whole top 6, bottom 6. It's Craig Berube's, fingerprints all over this team. And what is Craig Berube like? He likes a good third line. And I think the Leafs finally have a third line that Berube really likes. And, you got Max Domi out there. You got Calle Jarnkrok. Who's the other guy? Is it Bobby McMahon, Ryan? That was also on that line. But, whether it's him or Nicholas Waugh.
Yeah, McMahon had a goal last night.
I think it's Nicholas Waugh, but maybe it's interchangeable. Maybe that kind of goes, in a roundabout way to my point is, I'm more concerned if I'm the Leafs that they have a good top 9 and a fourth line that can play more than just cardio minutes, as Ryan likes to say. So, I like Easton Cowan on that top line. I know there's always going to be speculation as to whether Nicholas Robertson is going to be out the door or not. It seems like an annual exercise, but let's focus on just, can they roll 4 lines? And right now it's yes.
And we'll talk about Easton Cowan, obviously getting his first Leafs games under his belt. But Ryan, when you look at, this just what Michael kind of described as maybe this is the year we don't worry about top 6, bottom 6. It's all about the bigger picture. What do you get the sense in terms of, is this team currently as it's built right now, capable of being, enough a contribution from the top to bottom for offense to kind of get things done?
I think they can. I agree with Mike. It's going to be a different look for the Leafs where it's going to be more about that depth. And, again, like Bobby McMahon, with that goal last night, that was great for him. I thought Dakota Joshua played a great game.
Yeah.
And Cowan has been impressive. I think the most important thing last night was that Matthews got on the board. Nylander looked great. Tavares scored. And it just felt like, we're so early in the season that I think, for the first couple of games, the Leafs were kind of feeling each other out. It's obviously new line combinations. Maybe they were a little bit snake bit at times, but, the sort of like the damn burst against Nashville. And, Mike and I were at the game together, and I was saying in the press box, at times it looked like the top Leaf forwards were, kind of playing with the Preds. It was almost like a cat just batting around a mouse before it went into the kill, where they really had Nashville's defense kind of like swiveling all over the place looking for where the puck ended up, and more times than not it was in the back of the net. So I think everybody's sort of getting into gear. Maybe they just can't play the Red Wings. Maybe they're fine and Detroit is their kryptonite. Those are their 2 losses, and they didn't look
Cam Talbot.
It might have just been Cam Talbot.
We'll talk about him a little later.
Yeah, but it just feels like, they're just getting into gear. They're getting to know each other. And I think that Nashville game could be a nice little early turning point.
Well, real quick, Ryan, to continue that thought, I would like to get your kind of impressions on Easton Cowan in the first few games of his NHL career. I know we've talked a lot about, can he, fill the void? Can he be what the Leafs need on a full-time basis? Is this season still going to be kind of a trial and error thing? What do you think about just the early phases of what you've seen from him?
I would say so far, so good. What's really impressed me, and I've seen it in a couple of games already, because, we know Easton Cowan's not a big player, but the way he dips his shoulder down when he has the puck, he's actually really good at protecting the puck. And so that's a great sign because, again, it's the NHL, it's older, bigger competition. He's only played junior before on a regular basis. So I think so far he has impressed. And I think what you hope for if you're a Leaf fan is that in a couple of years, he becomes something akin to a Mitch Marner, the parallels are kind of funny. He's like a bit of a smaller guy, played for the London Knights, offensively gifted, but can also kill penalties if you need him to. So, this is obviously going to be just the beginning as his rookie campaign. But from what I've seen so far, he's playing with the right type of confidence where he's making plays. And when you're with Auston Matthews, that's what you have to do.
Right.
Yeah, I love that quote from Berube last night when I asked about Easton Cowan and whether he likes the fit with him and Matthews and Nyes. And he said, yeah, he's a worker with skill. And I think that's what Berube is looking for, is not just for the next Mitch Marner who can, dipsy doodle. And I think we all know that Cowan can do that. And, as he gets more comfortable, he's going to, expand on that offensive ability. But it's the worker stuff. And he said he's like a dog with a bone out there. And I think that's what you really need to do if you're Easton Cowan to impress your coach is, take hits, give hits. And I think he's got 5 hits in 2 games now. He did a really nasty hit from Ozzy Wiesblatt, or I'm probably mispronouncing it, right? Because
you actually nailed it.
I nailed it? Okay.
You nailed it.
Then the announcer missed it up last night then.
They did.
Okay. So, Ozzy nails Cowan, who didn't even have the puck, like from behind into the Leafs net. And, I think that was the moment where you're going, okay, is he going to get up? And, true to Cowan's nature, he bounced right back up and he was out there for the next shift. And I think that shows a lot because, you want to make sure that he's physically mature. Like, you got to remember, this guy did not play a single game in the minors, went right from major junior to the NHL. And granted, he spent 3+ years with the London Knights, but still that's a big jump. So the fact that he's handling himself and playing against top defensive matchups, it bodes well for the youngster.
I like it. Good start for the young guy. Oh, how about this? At the Board of Governors meeting, Senators owner Michael Andlauer said to reporters that Brady Tkachuk is getting a second opinion on his injury and that he should know if surgery is necessary within the next 24 hours. So how concerning is it that Brady Tkachuk is hurt again, Michael?
Well, listen, Katie, if you've got a Tkachuk on your roster, get used to them not playing 82 games. So whether it's Matthew, whether it's Brady, or even the sister, they play a physical game where, that's why you love the Tkachuks, is because they're always in the fight and dragging their teammates in the fight. Yeah. The bad part of that is they're always in the fight and they're dragging themselves in the fight and their teammates. So, if you can get 40+ games out of them, good luck. But, chances are Brady and Matthew are going to spend their careers on the IR, and you just hope that they're healthy in the playoffs. And even if they're not healthy, chances are they're going to play.
Yeah, death, taxes, and the Tkachuk brothers getting injured at numerous times throughout the season. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? And maybe just, how it would, have a little bit of an impact right now, at least for Ottawa.
Yeah, I'm no math whiz, but is it better to have a player that gives you 100% for 82 games or a player that gives you 120% for 65? Because that's what you get with the Tkachuks, right? When they're in the lineup, they're difference makers. Sometimes they get hurt. Sometimes they do the hurting. And that's why they're so valuable. I think this is going to be a really crucial stretch for Ottawa because this is a team that made the playoffs last year, was, on the rise. They have that great young core, which, at this point, I guess you just say they're in their prime. They're not young anymore. Like, these are established NHLers. Yeah. And Tkachuk, he's the captain. He's the leader there. So, for the Sens, I think this is a time to buckle down and, you want to make sure you're getting contributions from the guys who are still in the lineup, right? Whether it's Shane Pinto, whether it's Jake Sanderson on the back end, whether it's Tim Stützle, those guys are already so important. They had to be even better with Tkachuk, on the shelf. And I think this is a great test for them early in the season.
Yeah. Dylan Cousins, this is your time to really step up.
Totally.
Yeah, well, at least Dylan Cousins is healthy because the guy he got traded for Josh Norris is already on the IR as well. We will talk about Buffalo in just a moment. But like you mentioned, Michael, it is early in the season, but that doesn't mean that fans can't already start getting worried if their team is off to a bad start. So for you, which team that is not starting off the hot way their fan base probably wants them to is going to turn it around first?
I'm going to go out west, and I'm going to say Vancouver. And the reason I'm going to say the Canucks is you look at Thatcher Demko. He's got a 1.54 goals against average and a 944 save percentage. If he does that all year, Vancouver is going to make the playoffs. And the other thing to consider, no goals yet from Pettersson, no goals from Evander Kane, none from Quinn Hughes or Jake DeBrusk or Connor Garland. Obviously, that's going to change. You're going to get offense from at least 3, if not 5 of those guys. So, I know last year was just a nightmare season, but, I think things are going to be a little different this year.
Yeah. Plus, got Adam Foote still getting comfortable right in that head coaching role. There's a lot to, kind of take into a new coach aspect as well. Ryan, who's the team for you? You've got your eye on that had a bad start, but you don't expect this to last.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they are in a difficult division, but the number that sticks out for me right now, and this is kind of the opposite of what Michael said, Andrei Vasilevsky has an .870 save percentage so far. That's not going to stay that way. That's going to get up into the 9s for sure. He's too good a goaltender. Right. I think this is just a matter of them shaking off the rust. And, if you had a bad sort of 10 days in February, it's not so magnified. But when it's right off the hop, then that people are going to be sort of putting the spotlight on you. But I don't really have any concerns about the Lightning. The personnel's there. The coaching staff is top notch. I think this is just a matter of them getting off to a bit of a slow start. And at least it's not a tragic start. It's not like, they're going to be climbing a hill for the whole rest of the season. They do have points. Yeah. So I think they just need to get into gear.
And let's not forget either that Andrei Vasilevsky didn't participate in all of training camp, right? He was kind of late onto the scene. They had some maintenance and some things going on. So he's maybe shaking off even a little bit more rust than the rest of his team as he gets kind of going here. But it's fun because this is that time of the year where you've got crazy teams that are at the first place marks of the standings because some teams have only played a couple games. So everything changes very dramatically every single night. But I agree with both of you guys. I think those teams have the pieces. So we will see what happens and how they turn it around. Speaking of bad starts, let's talk about the Buffalo Sabres for a moment. Things are as bad as ever. Maybe darker than they've ever been in Buffalo. We've got fans tossing jerseys on the ice. The crowd is chanting Kevin at a recent loss. I saw on Twitter people were posting ticket prices for the upcoming game against Ottawa. You can get an NHL ticket for $9. Like, wow. That's bad. That's bad. Tickets in the 100 levels were going for 20. People posted screenshots. I mean, that's just it's not good on Ticketmaster for Buffalo. So are Kevyn Adams' days finally numbered in Buffalo? But more importantly, at this point, can any GM fix what is going on with the Sabres? Because it's almost like Kevin. What's what Kevin's supposed to do? Ryan, what do we think?
Well, there's clearly a culture problem in Buffalo. You just have to listen to some of the sound bites from some of their star players about going through the same thing over and over again, and this start being like so many of their other starts. It's difficult because they've been bad for so long. They've missed the playoffs for so long that you don't want to go through another rebuild because then you're waiting another 3-4 years. But at some point, like, you have to stop the madness. And, you ask about Kevyn Adams, like, that clock was ticking from day one. I mean, this was a guy with no relevant, elite management experience that was brought on. You look at the trades that have happened on his watch. So many of them have been trading $1 for 75 cents, sometimes 50 cents, sometimes 30 cents. You can't build when you have such a deficit. So what's the answer? Like, do you cut bait now and go back to fans again and say, like, we're really sorry, We know we said last time that this wasn't going to happen again, but we can't fire any more coaches. You know, we got to do something. So it's just a matter of like when they kind of pull the chute on this. And then like, I don't know, like if you get Gavin McKenna in the draft, is that enough to say, okay, well, we got a little more firepower up front now. And if we get, you know, a free agent or two that would love to play with Gavin McKenna, is that enough to get us into the playoffs next year? I don't know. But you got to do something.
And even Gavin McKenna fix this? I don't even, can he fix them? I don't even know about that. Michael, what do we think?
Well, to your point, like, I don't know what you do because you made trades in the offseason and at the deadline. And those trades, you know, I don't know if they were necessarily a win for, you know, Buffalo. To Ryan's point, like,
they were not.
I think you want a JJ Peterka in the lineup right now. And, you know, for me, I would rather have a Dylan Cousins right now, or I'm looking for a Dylan Cousins type of player who seems to care and can play with a little bit of, you know, grit and passion. You know, Kevyn Adams has to go. And it's funny, Jarmo Kekalainen is, you know, the senior advisor there. And, you know, Ryan, he was at the game last night watching the Leafs and the Predators. He was also there for opening night against the Montreal Canadiens. So, you know, not to make a joke, but Jarmo doesn't even want to be in Buffalo right now. He'd rather be in Toronto watching hockey. So I don't blame him. But, you know, that would be step one, is get Jarmo the GM role, because I actually think he built something that we're seeing right now in Columbus where it does have a lot of positivity. It's just, you know, if I'm Buffalo, I'm a Buffalo fan, I don't want to see any more trades, because it's just like, no, stop sending good players out the door who are going to win cups elsewhere.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's just the vibes are bad. They've been bad. They're not going to get better. There's just not too much left to be said about. I saw people talking on online about, like speculating on like where the next NHL teams are going to pop up, right? And someone commented like, hey, Buffalo here, we'd love an NHL team in our city, because right now they certainly don't feel like they have one.
Well, we talk about Pittsburgh and how they're kind of spinning their wheels. Like, if you're a fan of a franchise, which team would you rather have right now? Buffalo, where you have some youngish pieces that can turn around, or Pittsburgh, where it's just a bunch of old timers? And I'm leaning towards Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, like, if you're a Buffalo fan, you're like, at least the Penguins have wheels. We're just our car is up on blocks.
Wheels? You got wheels over there?
Wheels?
Where'd you guys get wheels? All right, well, let's keep the bad train rolling. My producer before the show said that I've got too many bad vibes today, but we got one more that we have to get to, and it's a historic one, because after being shut out by the Oilers on Tuesday night, the New York Rangers have surpassed, speaking of the Penguins, the 2001-2002 Pittsburgh Penguins for the longest season opening streak without a goal on home ice. 3 games, 0 goals. So is this just an unlucky start, or is something deeper and bigger wrong with the New York Rangers? Obviously, Trocheck now being on the LTIR does not help. But Michael, what do we think?
Yeah, Trocheck and Will Bergen was injured against the Oilers last night. They're saying lower body injury, but you know, the Rangers have 2 wins. One of them is against Buffalo. The other one is against Pittsburgh, who, you know, they blew out Pittsburgh, and then Pittsburgh, you know, or before that, shut them out. So I don't know about the Rangers. You know, I think we were talking about it last week, and we said Mike Sullivan needs some time, but I do think this is going a little deeper. Like, they could use Chris Kreider right now, who's tearing it up in Anaheim. They could use offense wherever they could get it. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of fans turning on Alexis Lafreniere for good reason. You know, I think 2 years ago we said, hey, this kid is finally breaking out. He's finally looking like a number 1 overall pick. Not looking like a number 1 overall pick right now.
No, it's not. Ryan?
I just feel like the soul has been gutted out of this team the past sort of like 12 months, 14 months, what have you. And Mike, you mentioned Chris Kreider, you know, a guy who was a lifelong blue shirt, and now he's succeeding on the other coast. And you know, Jacob Trouba had the same thing happen to him beforehand. And I also kind of feel like, you know, like Artemi Panarin's a pending UFA this season. I kind of feel like he's gone. So, what kind of production are they going to get from him this season? Is his head going to be in it if he knows that this is not the team he's going to be with long term? It just feels like there was too many decisions made that hurt the culture of this team, and especially last year, you could see it in the players. And I don't know if we can, put that on this year's bunch just yet. But I mean, it's not good so far. And then again, another player that was just traded, Keandre Miller. I don't know why you would trade a big, young, athletic defenseman who still had upside, but they did. And he's already scored for Carolina. So it just feels like so many things are blowing up in their face. And I don't know, how long ownership should stand for it.
Yeah, it's definitely, a bad start. Okay, it's early in the season. Okay, Sullivan needs some time, but there feels like something more systemically wrong going on. We'll see how that kind of continues to play out. All right, I'm going to switch gears. This is a positive question, but it's actually kind of secretly a negative question too, because we are asking about which team with a good start is probably going to fall apart first. Those teams that are at the top of the standings right now, and fans are like, heck yeah, look at us, looking down on all these other guys. But which one is just not going to be there for very long, do we think? Start us off, Ryan.
Well, I'm looking at the Nashville Predators, who currently, and granted, the season is only 8 days old, but they are currently in the top 3 of the Central Division in the standings. But based on what I saw last night against Toronto, I think this team's going to be in trouble again. Like, they just look kind of lost. And yeah, they scored 4 goals, but it was against Caden Primo, who is, Toronto's 3rd best goaltender, maybe 4th if you believe more in Dennis Hildeby. I mean, that's up to you. Yeah. But it just felt like, like their big guns for the most part were pretty unnoticeable. We saw Philip Forsberg a little bit, and he was playing physical, but for the most part, they got 2 quick goals at one point, and that kind of stunned the Leafs. But otherwise, the Leafs kind of did whatever they wanted in that game. And I do worry because the Central is so deep that we know that, Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg are probably going to be the top 3 teams at the end of the day. And then you look at Minnesota, you look at St. Louis and Utah, they're all going to be in the hunt as well with Nashville. So the Preds really have to sort of pile up points when they can. And they're off to a decent start, but I'm just not sure if they can sustain it.
Yeah, that was fun last night, Ryan. You and I are literally going down the roster going, Steven Stamkos, noticed him? No, I haven't noticed him. Yeah. All right. Philip Forsberg, noticed him? No, I haven't noticed him. It's like, it was a bunch of passengers. Yeah, it was sad. And you know what? It probably has to really hurt Barry Trotz to be watching a team that, used to be their hallmark was defense. And, what could you count on the Nashville Predators? It's like, fine, they might not score, but it's going to be a tough, defensive game. Now it seems like that's completely gone out the window. So, I know it's a tired kind of narrative, but I don't know how long that head coach can last there with Trotz watching that kind of hockey. It is early, and that's why I kind of couched this answer, Katie. Obviously, I think Anaheim is off to a great start, but, they've played, I think, 3 games or something like that. So, I still think that they're going to be in a dogfight for a wild card spot. Good on them that they're off to a start or this hot of a start. We mentioned Chris Kreider, 4 goals is great for him, but it's on 10 shots. So, again, is he going to be able to keep that up and sustain that?
Pretty good.
Probably not. But for now, it's pretty fun to watch.
All right. Well, let's talk about teams that are surprising us, teams that have done things to early in the season, whether that's the team themselves, maybe it's a specific player on the team. But Michael, which team or player or both has just surprised you to kick off this new NHL season?
Well, I called it at the beginning of the year. I said that, a lot of us are underestimating the Boston Bruins, and they're off to a great start. I know they beat up some bad teams. We keep mentioning Buffalo. That was one of their wins. Chicago, they barely squeaked by the Blackhawks at the beginning, but you look at their offense and they're really spreading it around. Geekie and Lindholm have 2 goals each. Pasta, who's probably going to be carrying that offensive load for the whole season, he's off to a hell of a start with 5 points in 4 games. But I do think that the Bruins, when all is said and done, is still they're going to be in a playoff spot. And it just feels like, last year we talked about it. The injuries were a major factor. Then they traded Marchand at the deadline. And, Jeremy Swayman, first year on that contract. I think there's a comfort level there now. They know that, what kind of team they're going to have to be. And, Geeky's, I think, going to be the revelation. I see him having that huge step forward, building upon what he did in the second half.
And Middlestat's been good too. He's been kind of stepping up. Again, they're kind of counting on him to take in that the second line center role. Total side story, but when I heard you mention Marchand and everything that's gone on, we know what, how devastating that was for Boston fans. I'm living up in New England near Boston now, and I saw this car the other day, this huge truck that was just like completely pimped out with Bruins stuff everywhere, and they had this huge Marchand thing all across the side of the car. And I'm just thinking to myself, how mad was that guy when they traded him? You can't, he's going to have to paint it over. I don't know. He put all that money into that truck, and it was this beautiful tribute to Marchand.
Cars depreciate, but that one's got to really depreciate.
Yeah, maybe. Or it's just, an ode to what could have been if they had kept him around and given him the money that he had wanted. But anyways, let's talk, Ryan, for you, surprising starts to start this NHL season.
Yeah. As for that Boston truck guy, you should see his full back tattoo. That's going to be the real killer.
That's way harder to get painted over.
That's a lot of sessions. I'm looking at Seattle and Matty Beniers, who is a New Englander himself, if I'm not mistaken. Point per game guy so far. Really nice bounce back. Last year was a disappointment, but the Kraken off to a pretty decent start. And the fact that they're getting offense from Beniers, I think, is big. They're scoring, and we know they're a scoring by committee kind of team. They don't have a superstar, but Beniers is off to a good start. Jared McCann and Vince Dunn, they're always at the top of the Seattle scoreboard, and they are there again. So I think with the Kraken, they need something, right? Like they need to pull together and make a push this year, gain some traction. And so far, it's looking good. I know they lost in OT to Montreal last night. But hey, at least they got a point there. And it was an emotional night in Montreal with the fantastic Ken Dryden tribute. So to get a point from Montreal on a night like that is almost like a win.
What a tribute that was, Ryan. And we were talking about it in the press box. Like no one does tributes or those like opening night ceremonies like the Habs. And that not just hockey, like all of sports.
Totally.
Yeah, I know we could have easily had that as a rapid fire question because I watched it with my husband last night and I was like, this is one of the best tributes I've ever seen. They truly, it's the hockey history mecca, but they really do such a nice job with that. Pretty incredible. And for Seattle, we've talked a lot about how we don't know what they are. Could this maybe, Ryan, be a season where we start to see them finally come up with an identity? Does it feel like they could be maybe trending that way finally?
I'm not sure. It's a great question. They have so many veteran forwards who are like pretty good guys, but those contracts are going to come up soon, if not this summer. So I think, you have to find an identity, but I think you also have to recognize that, the next generation is still like finding their footing full time, right? Like, and including Matty Beniers, like he hasn't been in the league that long. Shane Wright, Yanni Neumann, they have Berkeley Catton coming up. So, those are guys that like maybe you can get a little more offense, especially Catton based on, his junior numbers. But for them, it's tough because it's like, I know they want to win now, right? Like they want to give that market something to cheer for because it is still a new market. They've only been in the playoffs once, but at the same time, you have to think about, when do you kind of unleash the kids? And it's not an easy decision. So we'll see how things go.
I like it. All right. Well, let's talk about the Detroit Red Wings here for a second. The goalie carousel that's going on there. Obviously, they bring in John Gibson, and we're thinking, okay, this is going to be the guy. But the news out of Detroit from their morning skate, Cam Talbot will be making his third consecutive start tonight against the defending champ Florida Panthers. He's already played 3 games after he came in to relieve Gibson. He's got a .925 save percentage. John Gibson in that one game where he allowed 5 goals on 13 shots is at a lovely .615 save percentage, just lukewarm, right where you want it. So will Cam Talbot be Detroit's bona fide starter by the end of the month? Certainly feels like it's trending that way. Is it just growing pains for Gibson in a new town? What do we think, Michael?
You know what? I think a lot of us saw John Gibson going to Detroit thinking, okay, he's your number one, but we kind of forgot that Cam Talbot actually had a decent year. Like, save percentage was above 9, goals against below 3 on a team that wasn't very good. And as Ryan keeps mentioning, has one of the worst, like, defensive like top 6 defense in the NHL. So, I predict like a tandem situation. I guess if you had a gun to my head, I would say maybe Talbot gets more starts at the end of the year, but I don't see it being like a drastic swing of like, 60-20, something like that. I still think it's, they're roughly sharing the net.
Yeah, I agree. I think, it was one bad start for Gibson, but I think the luxury you have with those two is you can ride the hot hand. And, if Todd McLellan does that, then that's great for the entire team, right? If Cam Talbot's hot right now, feed him starts. And if Talbot, gets smoked by the Panthers, go back to John Gibson for the next game and see what he can do if he strings a couple of starts together. I think it's a nice luxury that they have. And, again, in a tough division for a team that hasn't made the playoffs in so long, the Red Wings are going to have to grind for points. And they've been good at that so far, taking 2 off the Leafs. But they have to be a team that, it's that whole thing, like 2 points in October are just as valuable as 2 points in March. And I think, if they're rotating their goaltenders, that might be the best solution.
And don't forget, like Todd McLellan, coached Cam Talbot and coached him to an All-Star game a couple years ago in LA before Todd was canned and then ended up coming to Detroit. So there's a familiarity there. Cam played arguably his best hockey under Todd McLellan. So it's not surprising that he'd be turning to him right now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, go with the hot hand. The biggest thing for Detroit is that somebody has to have that hot hand, though, because with the defensive group, if they go back and forth in this tandem situation, just kind of is swapping between 2 guys that are both kind of performing at a mediocre level, then Detroit could be in big trouble. But again, it's early in the season, so we will see who emerges and how that develops. All right, well, for over 75 years, the Hockey News has been the ultimate hockey fix, and now you can get 12 issues delivered right to you with stories, stats, a bonus issue, everything you need and more is over on thn.com, so check it out to get in on the action. All right, let's get into some rapid fire. Got a yes or no to kick things off. 6'9" forward Curtis Douglas fought Kurtis MacDermid. One's a C Curtis, one's a K Curtis. That is 2 big boys squaring off, and Douglas did this in his very first NHL shift last week. Could we see this enforcer role trying to potentially have a resurgence? We've got a couple teams now that all have a pretty big boy on their rosters. What do we think, Ryan?
Yeah, you know what? I think these things are a bit cyclical at this point, and I could see there being a bit of a rise in fighting this year because what do we always say about, the Stanley Cup champions? It's like they inspire copycats, and, the Panthers don't necessarily have an enforcer per se, but, they do have guys on their 4th line in particular who will fight with aplomb, and I think that, teams see that, and they're like, you know what, like, heading into the playoffs, like, you want to establish yourselves, you want to stick up for your teammates, and enforcer is typically the best guy to do that because if they break their hand, it's okay. If your star player doesn't, it's terrible. So yeah, I could see a bit of an upswing there.
I would say no, just because how many guys are going to be able to fight this guy? Like we talked about it when Rempe was coming up. It's like, how many guys actually want to fight a guy that's Rempe size? Like you have to, there's a handful of guys. Like like Ryan Reeves. You mentioned MacDermid. There's not a long list of quote unquote heavyweights anymore. This isn't like the 90s or even early 2000s where you had like a Colton Orr, you had a George Peros, and it seemed like every team had one guy on their 4th line that was 6'3" or taller and just skating around waiting for a shift to fight. So I still see these guys sort of as those unicorns.
But you do have like Matthew Olivier, Michael McCarron in Nashville is a huge dude. He'll fight. He always seems to be angry.
Maybe there is more. I mean, I don't know.
There's a couple. They're out there.
Ryan, who's the giant upcoming prospect who's like 7'1", and they just say he's like 280 pounds now? Is it Carmana or?
Yeah. I don't know if he's ever fought because he's just so like raw at this point. But you know what? You bring up a great point, Katie. Like if he doesn't find like a scoring touch or a particular skill set, I have to imagine, the people around him are going to be like, take some UFC classes and we can find you a job on the fourth line.
George Laraque. I mean, if you're 7'1", 280, like you could be the final boss of enforcers if you figured out how to.
So how old is this kid? He's like 15 or something?
No, he's 17.
17. They say he's still growing.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah.
They do.
Apparently.
It's not right.
It's crazy.
It's wild.
And is it 7'1"? I'm like, is that without the skates? Because then, you get your NHL 7, but you get your extra few points.
He's 7 feet tall, like.
It's crazy.
Flat. Yeah.
Love it. Although, honestly.
He can reach his hands out and touch either side of the boards.
He made Brent Burns look small. Like there was a picture of the two of them together.
Yes.
And Burns was like, look at this guy.
It's crazy. This dude is big. Well, it'll be fun to see what he becomes. All right. Yes or no? Nashville scratches rookie and Ontario kid Brady Martin against Toronto. Andrew Brunette says it was all part of the plan, but should they have sat him against a different team? And listen, I feel like every year or every few years, this happens where we get a player who's going home to make the debut and everyone's got their tickets and excited. Bobby Brink had this happen to him when Torts scratched him when he made his return to Minnesota for his first time as an NHL player. And my opinion is the coaches don't care. They're not looking at any of this. But do you guys agree with me? Is there ever a thought where it's like, we should give that kid that game, scratch him another game because it's so early in his development anyway? Michael, what do we think?
This is a big no. If this was part of the plan, Katie, your plan was wrong from the beginning. And, you mentioned Torts, like Babcock would do this. This is the kind of thing, if like Andrew Brunette was already on thin ice or wasn't on thin ice, this would put him on it. And it's the kind of thing that I imagine the dressing room wasn't happy. I was walking around the rink right before the game, and I saw a lot of Martin jerseys. He must have had a lot of fans in the arena wanting to see him. And, if you're the Nashville Predators early in the season, what is the harm in playing him against your hometown team? Chances are he probably would have played the game of his life, as most Southern Ontario boys do when they come to Toronto, and probably would have ended up with like a goal or two. Instead, it's like one of those moments where we're probably going to be looking back on going, oh, that was the moment where Brunette totally lost the dressing room.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. And I actually asked Brunette about this after the game. I was like, okay, so it's part of the development. It's like, we're big fans of Brady. He's coming along, seeing the veterans in practice. And I was like, I followed up. I said, but wasn't part of you like, it would be cool for him to play in Toronto? He's like, but this will be fuel just to add to the hunger for next time.
I wanted to hate me.
Really. And it's like, again, it's like, does it really matter? Like, why not like sit him the next game and just let him play in Toronto? Like, I agree with you.
So early in the season, I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's
if this was like, we're talking about early March.
Yeah.
Preds are like a point out of the playoffs and you desperately need that win. Okay.
And they lost anyway.
Yeah. This was like Mike Babcock sitting Jason Spezza in game one of the when he signed to come to Toronto, just to kind of make a point saying, I'm in control, not you, the GM. And it just, again, this kind of stuff, if you're in that dressing room, I imagine you're not totally thrilled with, how that unfolded.
All right, we got to buzz through these last ones, but I want to talk about the Minnesota Wild rookie Zeev Buium, off to a great start, leads all rookies, 5 points in his first 4 games. He's QBing the Wild power play. It's currently the best in the NHL. So Buium went number 12 back in his draft year. So I want you both to pick a number. Was 12 right for Buium, or should he have gone higher? Ryan?
Well, I will say higher, and I have the evidence to back it up because in draft preview that year, I had him 4th overall.
Ooh, way higher.
Yes, way higher because I know the value of Zeev Buium, unlike some of you teams out there. But yeah, I think maybe the reason that he dropped is he's quote unquote only 6 feet tall. But you look at the skill set that he brings to the ice, and Minnesota certainly knows it already. It's tailor made for today's NHL. He's a winner at every level. And I think he's going to be a fantastic NHL. He might even win the Calder this year. So yeah, definitely higher in my book.
Yeah, 5 defensemen went higher than him, Ryan, and
it's crazy.
Only 2 of those guys, Zane Parekh and Sam Dickinson, have played so far in the NHL. So it's probably too early to tell, whether he should have gone higher or if he went right or wrong. But right now, it's looking like Minnesota may have got lucky and got a kid that slipped to their spot. Where you had him 4th, Ryan?
I had him 4th.
Oh, yeah.
4th. Yeah. Any defenseman ahead of him?
Big Denver guy here.
Anton Silyev was number 2. He ended up going like 11th or something to New Jersey, but he was like 6'7" and scoring in the KHL at the time.
Yeah, future fighter, maybe too.
Maybe if it doesn't work out.
All right, here we go. So the Ducks gave away some sick old school Duck masks for their home opener. Anybody that loved the old Mighty Ducks and the old logo and everything would have fully enjoyed getting one of these. So guys, is this one of the best giveaways you've ever seen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Total Halloween, like Friday the 13th type vibes with this one. The Leafs don't give out anything anymore. They just give out like a tired towel that I think they just reprint, don't even change it. So, I guess this is the benefits of being in a non-traditional market is you get really good swag. You go to games.
Yeah, and everybody got one, I think, too. It wasn't like, first 5,000 people. It was every they went for it. I guess it's the home opener, but
yeah. No, I mean, how intimidating and weird would that have been for the other team where you if everybody in the arena put on their Duck mask at the same time, it would have been like V for Vendetta with ducks.
That's awesome. Yeah, it'd be very weird looking into the crowd. I like it. I feel like even for the Ducks, it was probably weird to see all their
You take a penalty, you're sitting in the penalty box, you just feel all these Duck masks behind you.
All right, final question for you guys. In honor of the Blue Jays, who are down 2-0 in the series, you told me, are they going to get a win tonight against the Mariners? Or is it starting to look a little concerning? Here we go.
There you go.
Mike's got a jersey. Tell us, Mike.
Yes.
Are they getting the win tonight?
Yes. This is, the Jays, they got Shane Bieber on the mound tonight. In Biebs we trust.
Not Justin.
Yeah, they're just making it a little dramatic, Katie. The Leafs go up 2-0 and then they lose the series. Jays are going in the other direction.
There you go.
Either way, Toronto fans are stressed to the max. They love doing this to you guys. All right, Ryan, what's the score going to be?
The score? Oh, I'm going to say it'll be a high score because that's when the Jays tend to do well. So I'm going to say it's going to be a 9-7 finish for the Jays. I don't know if they'll win the series, and I have no animosity towards the Mariners. It's not like they're the Yankees or Rangers or something. But I do think the Jays are going to get at least one win.
All right. Well, we hope to see that tonight. Guys, good stuff as always. Go Jays. Michael's ready. That does it for this episode of the Hockey News Big Show. Thanks so much, as always, for watching. Katie Gaus, Michael Traikos, and Ryan Kennedy, and we will see you next time.